Hi, I'm Jenna. Right now, I'm sitting on the edge of an old bed inside a house that smells like dust and lavender. The kind of smell that only time can make. I just opened a pillow, its seams torn, its feathers spilling across the floor like snow. And inside, I found something folded in four. A letter. The paper is thin, yellowed and soft from decades of sleep. There's handwriting on it. Elegant, careful, the ink faded but still alive. This is Mother's Lost War Letters, where we read the words that never reached the ones they were written for. Letters between mothers and sons, hidden by war, time, and silence. The words they never got to hear in time. Tonight's letter was written by a mother in the middle of World War II. She wrote it for her son, a young soldier who never came home. But he never read it because she never sent it. Instead, she hid it here, inside this very pillow, where it stayed for almost 8 decades, untouched until now. I keep thinking about why she did it. Was she afraid the truth would hurt him? Or did she believe he would somehow find it when he came back? The handwriting trembles in places, like she wrote it in candlelight. There are small stains on the corner. Maybe tears, maybe candle wax. It feels less like paper and more like breath pressed into fabric. And here we are all these years later, finally unfolding her words. If you've ever wished you could hear what your mother never managed to say out loud, this story is for you. If stories like this stay with you long after they end, please like this video and subscribe to Mother's Lost War Letters, so these voices are never forgotten again. The letter is right here beside me, still carrying the faint scent of lavender. In a moment, we'll finally read what she never got to say in time. The letter rests beneath a small lamp. Its paper glows faintly, like it remembers the hands that once folded it. Outside, the night presses against the windows, quiet, heavy, and full of waiting. I unfold it carefully, the sound of the creasing paper louder than it should be. The first line is written in a soft, steady hand. My dearest William. Her name isn't signed yet, but the tenderness in every curve of the letters already says Mother. She begins with ordinary things, the kind that seem meaningless until you know they were written in wartime. I've mended your blue sweater, the one with the missing button near the collar. I left it folded by your bed, just in case the cold finds you before spring does. You can almost see her there, a woman in her 40s, sitting at a small table near a window covered with blackout curtains. The only light comes from a single candle. The war outside has made the nights quieter, not peaceful, but suspended. The room smells of damp wool and bread that has gone stale. In the corner, a clock ticks softly, the same rhythm that will return later when her grandson finds this letter. The clock is one of the few things that survived the years. She writes, the air raid siren hasn't sounded for 2 nights now. It feels almost wrong to have silence again. I can hear the church bells in the morning and I pretend they are for you. Your brother, Thomas, keeps asking when you'll come home. He doesn't understand why the trains go one way and never come back full. Her words are simple. There's no poetry in them, only truth. You can feel her weighing every sentence, making sure it won't sound too afraid, too hopeless. She's trying to send strength across miles of ocean and gunfire. Between the lines, though, there's something else. Something she doesn't quite say. Maybe guilt, maybe regret, maybe both. The ink darkens halfway down the page, as if she pressed harder to keep her hand from shaking. I've washed your blanket, the one you took camping when you were 12. It still smells like the river, somehow. I keep it folded at the foot of my bed. Every night before I sleep, I smooth it out. I tell myself that somewhere, you're doing the same with your uniform. The letter continues, slipping between updates about ration cards, the neighbor's chickens, the cold creeping through the walls. And then comes the first small crack. I had a dream last night that you were standing in the doorway. You looked older, taller. You said something I couldn't hear. When I woke, I was holding the pillow so tight my fingers hurt. It's the same pillow where this letter would later be hidden. In the margin, there's a faint pencil note, maybe written later. A small, don't forget. But there's no sign of what she meant to remember. Outside, I can hear the wind against the windows, echoing her words. The room feels colder now. She writes on. Mrs. Clark from across the street came by this morning. She brought 2 eggs and a story I didn't want to hear about a ship that went down in the channel. I told her you weren't on it. I told her I'd know if you were. And then, one more line, so small it almost disappears. A mother always knows. The candle on my desk flickers as if the house itself is holding its breath. She closes this page with tenderness that doesn't know it's being written for history. Wherever you are tonight, William, remember this. The light in this house will never go out until you come home. The next page begins with a smudge, the mark of a tear that fell before the ink dried. The second page opens like a memory, quiet, fragile, full of things too simple to survive war. If the post reaches you before Christmas, she writes, know that your stocking still hangs by the mantel. Thomas insists on putting one for you, too. He filled it himself. An apple, 2 toffees, and a button he found that looks like the one missing from your sleeve. There's a small ink blot after that line, as if her pen paused over a smile she couldn't finish. You can feel her trying to build a future, one ordinary letter at a time. She writes about the next spring, the garden, the promise of things growing again. When you return, we'll plant potatoes along the back fence. The soil's gone hard since the frost, but it will listen to your hands better than mine. I'll bake the honey bread you loved. We'll eat it warm this time, not cold, not rushed like the last morning before you left. The kitchen she describes feels almost alive. The clatter of the kettle, the smell of soap and coal dust, the ticking of that same clock that still lives somewhere in the family's house. Then comes a small shift, so subtle it almost hides. Your letters stopped coming after the second week of November. Perhaps the mail is just slow. Perhaps the snow makes everything take longer. It's the first time she lets her fear breathe, and even then, she covers it with hope. You always said you'd be back by Easter. I still believe you will. I even saved your seat by the window. Every morning I dust it so the sun can find its way to where you'll sit. The rhythm of her sentences slows, and the tone changes. It's as though she begins to write not to the boy who left, but to the man she hopes he's become. I wonder if you still hum when you're nervous. I hope so. It used to drive me mad, but now I'd give anything to hear it again. The house feels like it's holding its breath. There's a mark on the paper, faint lines, diagonal, pressed so deep they tore the page slightly. They look like the edge of a sewing needle. Maybe she rested the letter beside her sewing basket that night. Maybe that's when she thought of hiding it inside the pillow. A small paragraph follows, one that feels like a prayer disguised as advice. Be kind even when they are not. Do not forget who you are or where you learned to be gentle. The world will ask you to become hard. Don't. You are your father's courage and my heart. Then a small memory, one of those that hurts because it's so ordinary. Do you remember when the river flooded and we had to climb the hill barefoot? You carried the cat in your jacket, afraid she'd drown. I can still see your hair sticking to your forehead. You looked up and said, "And we'll be all right, Mom. We just have to keep moving." She underlines keep moving. The words shimmer on the page. A child's promise turned prophecy. Outside, the night grows colder. Somewhere a church bell rings. She must have heard the same sound that very night. The next line comes without warning. They say there was heavy fighting near Caen. If you were there, if you see this, please know that I light the candle every night. 7 o'clock sharp. I promised myself I would, until you come home. 7 o'clock, the temporal loop that will return when her grandson reads the letter nearly 80 years later, finding the same candle holder still on her bedside table. She signs this page differently. No love mother, no name. Just a single shaking line. Until you come home. The page ends there, unfinished. The next page is darker, not from the ink, but from the weight of what it carries. The paper feels rougher, the handwriting smaller, more hurried. It's as if the candle was burning too low and she was racing against the dark. We've had no post for 3 weeks, she begins. The boy at the post office says the trains have been stopped again. I try not to listen to the rumors, but they find their way into every room. Her sentences become shorter, clipped. The kind of writing you do when every sound outside could mean sirens. There was another raid last night. The house shook so much that the glass above the sink cracked. Thomas slept through it. I don't know whether to be grateful or afraid that he's grown used to it. In the middle of the page, she draws a small cross in the margin. No explanation, just a cross. The letter drifts into fragments, her mind moving between fear and memory. I heard the train whistle this morning, far off, and for a moment I thought it was you. I always thought I'd know the sound of your return. Mrs. Clark lost her eldest yesterday. She came by to borrow sugar, but really, she just wanted to talk. She said it feels like the war is swallowing the names before the telegrams arrive. You can feel the world closing in around her, the sirens, the whispers, the way even neighbors have stopped knocking. Then a quieter paragraph, so human it hurts. I started sewing by candlelight again. The thread breaks easily these days. I fixed the pillow you used as a child, the one with the blue stitching. It's split along the side, right where your name is embroidered. I think I might fill it with lavender to keep the scent of you near. The same pillow, the same seam, the future already moving toward its secret. The candlelight flickers across her words as if it knows what's coming. Your father's photograph fell from the shelf this morning. It landed face down. I didn't pick it up for a long time. Outside her window, the world is shrinking. Blackouts every night. Rations thinner than ever. The war has entered every corner of her home, even her handwriting. Yet she still finds moments to reach for beauty. The magnolia tree bloomed this morning somehow. One stubborn blossom in the cold. I thought of you. You always liked things that refuse to give up. Then the fear returns, colder, closer. They say the letters from France won't come through anymore. The mail sacks were moved south. I don't know what that means. I keep thinking, if yours was among them, if it's sitting somewhere in a dark room waiting, maybe it's better this way. Maybe words are safer unread. That line sits heavy. You can almost hear her whispering it as she writes. Maybe words are safer unread. She continues, her sentences trembling like the candle flame beside her. If this reaches you, don't worry for me. I have food enough, warmth enough, and faith enough to keep the house standing. I sleep with your blanket each night. It smells faintly of rain and something else I can't name. A small tear stains the lower edge of the paper. The ink blurs where it touched. Then just before the page ends, she adds one more line. A whisper to herself more than a message. If I could only hold your hand once more, I'd know how to go on. The candle goes out after that line. You can see the smudge of soot where her fingers must have brushed the wick. In the silence of her house, the ticking of the clock continues. One heartbeat against all the things she'll never say. The ink on this next page is darker again, almost desperate. She must have refilled the pen that night, determined to keep writing even when the words began to tremble. The first line feels heavier, as if she already sensed the end of something she couldn't name. The doctor says the cough will pass. He always says that. She doesn't write what kind of cough or how long it's lasted. But there's a pause between the sentences that feels like a silence she's grown used to living inside. If I'm not well when you return, don't be afraid. You've always been the brave one. The letter turns tender, like she's speaking through the ache in her chest. Do you remember how I used to scold you for leaving the door open? The cold always found its way in. Now I leave it ajar sometimes. I imagine I'll hear your boots on the step. The air around her must have been thin with the sound of sirens and distant thunder. Yet she keeps writing as if words were the only thing keeping her alive. She tells him about the neighbors again, the world reduced to tiny human gestures. Mrs. Clark left a basket of apples by the gate. They're small and bruised, but I can't bring myself to eat them. She lost her last son last month. Then comes a new confession, written in a smaller hand, as though she's afraid of the paper hearing her. I dream of your father sometimes. Not the way he looked when he left, but the way he was before the war took him too. I keep thinking he would have known what to say to you, how to make you believe this world can still be kind. Her pen hesitates, then slides into another truce she's been hiding. There is something I must tell you, though I pray you never have to read it. The letter trembles now, her handwriting almost collapsing into itself. When you were born, they said you wouldn't live through the night. You were so small, your breath barely there. I remember sitting beside you whispering, "Please, just stay." And you did. You always did. That's who you are, my boy. You stay. So if the day ever comes when you cannot send word, I'll still believe you stayed. Maybe not here, but somewhere near. There's an ache between the lines, one that feels like both surrender and faith. Then, another revelation. Quiet, buried between details of weather and routine. The postman brought a returned envelope today. My last letter to you. The stamp was marked undeliverable. I held it so long in my hands that the ink came off on my fingers. I washed them, but the blue wouldn't fade. It's the first clear sign that she knows something is wrong. But she doesn't say it aloud. She writes instead of a ritual. Every evening at 7, I light the candle and say your name once. I don't speak it during the day anymore. It hurts too much. But at 7, I let myself remember everything. The time, 7 o'clock, loops again, like a thread tying her to him across decades. If this letter never reaches you, it will wait for you here, inside this house, inside something that once kept you warm, so that when you return, you'll find it by your pillow, the way I always left your goodnight kisses. That line, almost casual, seals her decision, the pillow. She has already chosen where the letter will sleep. Her tone softens again, as if speaking to the child she once held. If Thomas ever finds this, tell him I loved him differently, not less. He was my quiet heart. You were my wild one. Another paragraph, shakier now. The priest says we mustn't question why God takes and spares. I don't. I only ask that he lets you feel, wherever you are, that someone still keeps a light for you. Her final sentences are small, almost whispering. If I could send one more thing, it would be the sound of this house, the ticking clock, the kettle warming, the wind at the window, so you'd never forget where home is. She ends the page with one trembling promise. When the war is over, come home, even if it's only to say goodbye. The line trails off mid-word, the pen scratching until it stops. The last sheet is thin and almost translucent. It looks as though it might crumble if I breathe too close. Her handwriting has changed again. Smaller, weaker, each letter leaning toward the next as if the ink itself were trying to hold her up. My dear William, she begins, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but writing to you makes the silence bearable. The doctor came again. He says I must rest more, but I can't rest when the world is still burning. I listen to the radio at night, the static, the voices that sound so far away. Sometimes I think I hear your name in them. You can almost see her sitting there, wrapped in her shawl, a candle by her side, the same clock ticking through the silence. Every sound in that small house must have felt like a heartbeat. The neighbors say the war is turning. They say it might end soon. I don't dare believe it. I've learned that hope can be a cruel visitor. Her tone shifts, not despair, but resignation dressed in tenderness. I finished mending your pillow, the one with your name stitched in blue. It split again along the seam. I think I'll put this letter inside, just for a little while, to keep it safe. It's written so plainly. No grand gesture, no explanation. Just a mother doing what mothers do, protecting what's left. She adds, almost absently, I stuffed it with lavender, the last from the garden. The scent makes me think of you running through the field behind the house, your knees always scratched, your laughter louder than the wind. A faint blot appears beside the word lavender. It looks like a fingerprint pressed deep into the page. Then comes a paragraph that feels like goodbye without saying it. If I am gone when you return, please forgive the quiet you'll find here. The walls will still remember you. So will the light through the kitchen window. It will fall the same way it always did, as if time were kind enough to wait. Her sentences grow shorter, the breath between them longer. Thomas asked today if heaven has soldiers. I told him no, only sons who made it home. I am tired, my boy, but I'll keep the candle lit tonight, like always, 7 o'clock. I imagine your face in that light. The words that follow are barely legible, faded into the paper's grain. If you find this, know I was never angry. I only missed you. And then, the smallest detail, almost invisible unless the light hits just right. A pressed petal, brown and fragile, caught between the folds. Lavender. The scent still faint, ghost-like. Her final paragraph is only 3 lines, but it feels like the whole weight of her life folded into one breath. Wherever you are, William, I'll meet you there, in the morning by the river where the world is quiet again. Below it, her signature, simple, unsteady. Mother. In the present, the paper trembles in my hands. The house is silent except for the faint ticking of the same clock that marked her nights. The lavender scent has filled the room, softer now, but unmistakable. It's hard to tell if she meant for this letter to be found, or if hiding it inside the pillow was her way of keeping her heart close to her son, safe, unseen, waiting. The last thing written on the back of the paper is barely a whisper in faded ink. If this never leaves this house, let it at least be near where he once dreamed. I fold the letter back along its old creases. The fabric from the pillow lies open beside it, torn where her stitches once were. The candle on my desk flickers once, then steadies, a small living echo of hers. When I look up from the letter, the room feels different. The air seems heavier, as if the years themselves have settled in it. The old house is silent now, no voices, no footsteps, only the steady tick of that same kitchen clock that has outlived everyone it once kept time for. The pillow where the letter had been hidden lies open on the table. Its feathers still hold the faint scent of lavender. Beneath the fabric, sewn into the seam, I can see a single loose thread, the one she must have pulled tight after tucking the paper inside. She probably thought she was keeping it safe until her son came home. But the war had other plans. I traced the date on the letter again, December the 12th, 1944. Just weeks before the ship carrying the 43rd Infantry Mail Unit sank off the English coast. Hundreds of letters were lost, words meant for mothers, sons, lovers, never delivered. William's name appears in one of the casualty lists from that same month. He was 21. His mother never received official confirmation. The telegram must have arrived after her death the following spring. The neighbors said she passed quietly in her sleep, the candle still burning on the nightstand. The house changed hands, then changed again. The pillow stayed behind, stuffed into an attic trunk that no one ever opened. Until this year, 2023, when her grandson, David, began restoring the old house. He found it by accident while tearing out the moss-eaten linen and felt something stiff beneath the fabric. When he unfolded the letter, the scent of lavender rose into the air, just as it does now. He said the house suddenly felt less empty, as if someone had been waiting for him to find it. David told me he grew up thinking his grandfather had abandoned the family, that he'd never written home. Reading this letter changed everything. It turned silence into love, regret into understanding. He placed the pillow back on the bed, but this time he left it unsewn. The letter now rests in a glass frame beside it, under a small brass lamp. Every night at 7, he lights the candle, the same ritual his great-grandmother kept, without ever knowing it would cross generations. I stand by that light now, the letter between my hands, and I realize that even when words are buried, they find a way to breathe again. Time doesn't silence love. It only delays its voice, the words they never got to hear in time. If stories like this stay with you, please like this video and subscribe to Mother's Lost Boletos, so these voices of mothers and sons of love and loss are never forgotten again. And tonight, wherever you are, take a moment to listen. Someone long ago was writing to you too.